Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going on a seriously fascinating journey to uncover a hidden force that dictates, well, a whole lot of our behavior. We're going to explore why we constantly chase the things that pull away from us and why the hardest things to get often feel like the absolute most valuable. We'll start with everyday habits, wander into some ruthless power strategies, dive deep into the psychology of heartbreak, and finally, look at how we can actually reclaim our control. All right, let's just dive right in.
So, have you ever wanted something simply because you couldn't have it? Picture this. You're browsing online, right? Maybe looking at a pair of shoes or some random gadget you definitely don't need. But then, boom, you see a flashing red sign. Only one left in stock. And suddenly, your heart rate actually spikes. You feel this intense, overwhelming urge to just click buy now. You literally didn't care about this thing 5 minutes ago, but now you absolutely must have it. So why exactly does that happen?
Well, what you just experienced there is called the scarcity principle. Basically, opportunities, products, or information become significantly more appealing and valuable to us when their availability is limited. And the really crucial thing to understand here is that this isn't just some cheap marketing trick cooked up to sell you sweaters. No, this is a deep-seated psychological reaction. It is literally hardwired into our evolutionary survival instincts as a knee-jerk reaction to the threat of loss.
But why does scarcity hack our brains so effectively? We essentially have 4 core mechanisms pulling at us here. First up is the perceived value heuristic. It's basically a mental shortcut. If something's rare, our brains automatically assume it equals high quality. Second is loss aversion, or the fear of loss. The pain of missing out on something is psychologically way stronger than the pleasure of gaining it. Third is psychological reactance, which we'll look at in just a second. And fourth is social proof. If something is selling out, our brain instantly goes, wow, everyone else wants this, so it absolutely must be amazing.
Let's zoom in on that third mechanism for a moment, psychological reactance. Listen to this quote. When our freedom to choose or acquire something is threatened, we experience a strong desire to reassert that freedom. This is the classic forbidden fruit effect, right? When something is banned, restricted, or limited, our internal narrative totally shifts. We completely stop asking, hey, do I actually want this? And we start saying, they're trying to stop me from having this, so I'm gonna get it. Banning something literally makes us crave it so much more aggressively. Now let's shift gears and see how this builds into something much more intense. We're moving from everyday consumer habits straight into Machiavellian strategy. Take Robert Greene's famous book, The 48 Laws of Power. While marketers use scarcity to sell us physical stuff, ruthless strategists and powerful figures actively weaponize this exact same psychological principle against other human beings to gain absolute control and influence. Law 16 is a perfect example of this weaponization. Use absence to increase respect and honor. It's kind of like a crown left on an empty pedestal. The crucial point here is that you don't want to always be available. Once you've established your presence and your value, deliberately making yourself less accessible, limiting your phone calls, your meetings, your overall presence, instantly skyrockets your perceived value. By stepping away, you force people to recognize exactly what they're missing. And that brings us to the concept of strategic unpredictability. Powerful people use a specific combination of laws to basically keep others totally off balance. Law 8 says make others come to you. Get them to react to your moves. Law 17 says cultivate an air of unpredictability to keep others in suspended terror. Intense, right? And Law 31 is all about giving the illusion of choice. You control the options, so no matter what someone chooses, you win. Ruthless strategists maintain control by forcing everyone else to frantically react to their mysterious, completely unpredictable withdrawals.
Okay, let's pause for a moment. Because the truth is, these power dynamics don't just stay in the boardroom or on the battlefield. They follow us home. They slip right under our doors and into our most intimate spaces. Let's transition to what actually happens when the scarcity principle enters our romantic relationships, where it usually shows up as emotional unavailability.
Take a second and reflect on your own past heartbreaks, or maybe a relationship you've watched a friend go through. We are so frequently drawn to the emotionally unavailable partner, aren't we? Someone who is distant or hard to read suddenly becomes incredibly, intensely desirable. The unpredictability of a distant partner creates this intoxicating mystery. The chase just feels so thrilling, like you're in some high-stakes romance.
But here is the massive takeaway. That chase is a total illusion. It feels thrilling, sure, but the reality is incredibly turbulent. In fact, research published in Sage Open shows that unrequited love, which is heavily driven by this perception of scarcity, completely lacks the deep passion, commitment, and mutual investment of a real, healthy partnership.
Instead of genuine connection, a relationship built on scarcity just leads to severe emotional turmoil. It's really just a turbulent, significantly less fulfilling version of love.
So how do we react when we feel that scarcity? Well, it triggers what's known as the above-average effect. When we sense a partner pulling away, it triggers our deepest fears of loss. To cope with feeling inadequate, our brains kick in as a psychological buffer. We start amplifying our positive traits and downplaying our negative ones. Basically, we overcompensate. We frantically try to prove our worth to this distant partner, desperately trying to convince them, and ourselves honestly, that we are valuable enough to keep around.
Now, this stat is just staggering. A study published in Current Psychology found that 28% of our impulsive, scarcity-driven relationship decisions stem from a lack of self-efficacy, which is essentially confidence in managing challenges, and a lack of self-control. When we don't have the confidence to handle the discomfort of being alone, we prioritize short-term relief. We stay in these unfulfilling, scarce dynamics just to avoid the perceived pain of losing the connection entirely.
And unfortunately, there are people out there who intuitively know exactly how to exploit this. Traits like impulsivity, stubbornness, rebelliousness, and narcissism actually act as a massive magnet in short-term relationships because they evoke novelty and unpredictability. Manipulative partners will intentionally withhold affection, communication, or emotional availability. They literally weaponize their absence to create a sense of scarcity, keeping you desperately invested and constantly off balance.
But here is where we get to pivot. We absolutely do not have to be victims of the scarcity principle. We can flip the script entirely. Just as manipulative partners or ruthless strategists use absence to control you, you can use distance to reclaim your own mental clarity and autonomy. Let's talk about the immense power of your own strategic withdrawal. So when exactly should you step back? According to Forte Consulting, you execute a withdrawal when you hit diminishing returns, like when your continued efforts in a relationship or a project are just yielding minimal benefits, or when you experience a major shift in priorities, or simply when new opportunities require your energy. And I really want to frame this clearly. Stepping back is absolutely not a weakness. It is not a surrender. When a situation is draining your resources without giving an adequate return, stepping back is the ultimate power move.
So how do you actually pull this off? How do you strategically detach from toxic dynamics or dead-end projects? Well, it takes 4 clear steps. First, assess honestly. Take a real hard look at what's working and what isn't. Second, communicate clearly. If it makes sense, explain your withdrawal so it aligns with your boundaries. Third, plan your exit. Don't just react impulsively, withdraw strategically so you avoid causing unnecessary disruption to yourself. And fourth, learn from the experience. Analyze what led you to this exact point so you can adjust your strategies for the future.
The absolute most crucial point here is making a fundamental shift. We've got to move away from a scarcity mindset, which is just full of clinging, chasing, and the constant fear of loss, over to an abundance mindset. Think about it. Contrast the anxiety of begging for crumbs of attention with the absolute unshakable security of knowing there are abundant, healthy connections and opportunities available to you out there. Real relationships rooted in abundance involve partners who share openly and offer reassurance without you having to constantly prove your worth.
And when you adopt this mindset and practice strategic withdrawal, you reap the amazing benefits of what experts call strategic pruning. It's just like a gardener removing dead branches so the rest of the plant can thrive. Cutting the dead weight out of your life significantly enhances your focus on rewarding areas. It increases your agility to adapt to change, and it absolutely drives innovation, making real room for new ideas. Cutting away what drains you makes space for vigorous growth, profound self-respect, and wildly healthier relationships.
I want to leave you with a lingering question to chew on today. The very next time you feel that sudden, overwhelming desperation to hold on to someone who's pulling away, or to buy that random item that only has one left in stock, take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I truly want this, or am I just afraid to lose it? Recognize the scarcity trap for exactly what it is and choose abundance. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning what really drives your desires. Catch you next time.